guys, it's Tim from Paramed CZ, and I'm here to talk to you today about weapon retention. Why is weapon retention so important? Well, reason being is we need to look after our weapon systems. And if you don't look after our weapon systems, then this is what is going to happen. Things are going to get broken. Okay, this might be a dummy, but that's not the point. If you are not looking and seeing where your weapon system is at any given time, then you're not going to be ready to get back in the fight. Plus, things like sights or anything else that could be fitted to your weapon system that's obviously important in terms of engaging an enemy, it's going to get broken and you're essentially going to become mission ineffective. So this is what we don't want. So again, the aim of this video today is to try and get you guys to set yourselves up for success in terms of weapon retention and making sure you know where your weapon system is at all times, and obviously avoiding damaging your weapon system, but damaging the patient. Now, I speak from experience. Unfortunately, we had an instructor on one of our military courses, and one of the students' weapon system slid from behind them because they didn't have it restrained, despite the fact that they had it on a sling, and the muzzle struck one of the instructors in the face, and the instructor suffered quite a serious injury to their eye. Thankfully, they were wearing their eye probe, so the injury was reduced significantly, but it demonstrates what could happen in the real world. If it happens in training, it's going to happen out there when you're on mission. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video today. Of course, if you have any questions at all, please do not hesitate to email us. Do the usual, like and subscribe, and we'll be making more videos for you. So, before we start, first off, I want to say that I have 4 weapon systems behind me. They have all been checked. All of the magazines are empty. The working parts are forward, and the safety switch is on safe. So they're all safe for me to handle during the course of this video. And I want to start off with my standard kind of M4 AR type platform. Very common and used a lot kind of in training and obviously operationally. Just so you know, this particular one does have a D-ring fastener on it so that it can be attached to body armor, to a sling if I needed to. In terms of weapon retention, I'm going to start off by literally using my hands and my body to retain the system. Well, that's pretty simple in that if I hold it by the pistol grip, I can hold it one-handed and I can fire the weapon if I needed to, which means I've got one hand free to be able to get hold of a patient. In this case, if I wanted to do a one-handed drag to move a patient into an area of safety or cover, I could do so whilst making sure that I've got the muzzle of my weapon pointing in a safe direction, and again I have control, in which case this part or this part is not going to strike the ground and it's not going to strike my patient. I know where the muzzle is at all times. But what about when I'm working with my patient? Now, one of the common things that happens with a sling is when the weapon system is slung behind the person, what happens is the person will bend over, they'll kneel down, and the weapon system ends up swinging round. In that case, what can happen is it gets dug into the ground, or, as has happened with one of my instructors, it's hit the patient in the face. In which case, if you cannot control your weapon system, it may be a good idea to disengage the sling or put it in a position where you have access and you can get back in the fight if you need to. Now, I've literally just placed it on the ground next to me. I know where it is. I can quickly get to it if the situation changes, and I can take the appropriate action. To keep it even more secure, what I can do is place it behind my knees. I've got it tucked in between my thighs here, and muzzle pointing in a safe direction, and it's secure. It's not going anywhere. It also means that I've got 2 hands free to get access to whatever I need to get access to so that I can apply the appropriate treatment to my patient and I can carry that treatment out. Of course, if things change, then I can rapidly reset, secure my bag, secure my weapon system, and do whatever it is that I need to do. So again, that's just a simple way of controlling your weapon, and it's a really good idea if you practice that and get used to it. Now, one of the things that could possibly happen is the weapon system gets placed behind you. And now there's a temptation that you lose sight of the weapon system, and if you're losing sight of something, then you may forget it. And this is what often happens is students will walk away or they'll turn around to do something and then the weapon system gets stood on, and again it can get driven into the ground and damage can be done. So whilst it works in some situations, it doesn't always work in all. You can argue that the best thing you could do is actually retain the weapon system on yourself, on your person, and that's where a sling comes in. So let's look at the type of slings that we've got. Here I've got nice and simple, traditional single point sling. So it only attaches at one point on the weapon system, and it's kind of on a shock cord, bungee cord type system with a strap that you can adjust the size and the length depending on the weapon system that you're using. Then we've also got our 2-point sling, and 2 points, it attaches to the weapon system at 2 points, normally forward of the weapon and to the rear of the weapon. So there are various advantages and disadvantages to using these particular systems. We'll start off with using our single point sling. So, nice and simple in terms of attaching it to myself, I can literally just put it round my neck. If I take my weapon system, in this case we're going to start off with something nice and short, like my Glock in a Roni type platform, then I can just attach it with the D-ring fastener at the back. Remember, I know the weapon system and I am able to adjust the size and adjust the length of it by moving the buttstock. Now, if I have the weapon system retained behind my neck, then that's quite a lot of load that's going to be on your neck. I can adjust the distance of it in terms of how it hangs on me, but again, there's a lot of load here. Plus, when I lean forwards, that weapon system is going to be moving around quite a bit unless I've got hold of it, like so. In which case, to give me a little bit more control, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass an arm through the strap. And what I can do now, obviously as well as use the weapon, is I'm able to take the weapon system and move it around to one side. Less pressure on my neck, and I can still have my weapon system with me, and I could lift the stretcher and move quite easily like so. But again, if I'm moving around and I need to lean forwards and get access to my kit or get access to my patient, that weapon system is still able to freely move. So what else can I do to stop this from happening? And most often, this is where things like the muzzle getting struck into the ground or hitting the patient happens. I've actually made an adjustment or a modification to my body armor. So on both sides, on the left and on the right, if you've not already noticed, I've attached a bungee cord, which means that I can take my weapon system and I can place it underneath that bungee cord to the left side or to the right side, which is going to keep it secure. For now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this particular weapon system and I'm going to try something just a little bit bigger. In this case, I've got my G36 And with the buttstock extended, obviously the size is increased somewhat. And if I let it hang free, there's a lot of weight and again an awful lot of movement. But what I can do to help, like I said, because I know my weapon system, is I can adjust the buttstock so I can make it shorter, and I can take my bungee and I can move my weapon system to one side, and I'm going to loop the bungee underneath the pistol grip. Now I've got the weapons system at my side and it's not going to move forwards. It's not going anywhere. It's a really good way of helping yourself, and you notice as soon as I knelt down, it didn't fall forwards, and most importantly, the muzzle doesn't end up getting driven into the ground where it's going to get full of stones. And these things do jam up a barrel really well. And it gives me access to my equipment as before, so that I can do whatever it is that I need to do, and again get access to my patient without worrying where my weapon system is at any given time. The big difference here, I personally think, is having that additional bungee. If I literally just rely on friction and have it to one side, the weapon system is going to move. But this is just one method. There are other systems that you can employ that can clamp the weapon in place. For me personally, it's just as easy having a bungee cord that I can literally just move and drop out of the way, which allows me ready access to my weapon system so that I can get back in the fight as I need to. Nice and simple. That was for my G36. But let's look at using our 2-point slings. And this can be even more challenging, especially if you have a much longer weapon system. So, before we carry on, I just want to talk about what happens if we have to get access to a patient, especially when they've got their weapon system attached to them. You need to know and understand how to get access to the patient, especially when they're wearing body armor, etc. Now, the temptation can be to attempt to remove the weapon system, and inevitably the patient gets hit by the weapon, or they're going to get strangled by a sling itself. So it's really important that you know and understand how to disengage a sling so that you can then safely remove the weapon system from the patient, and you can then carry out your drills and make sure that the weapon system is in a safe condition. Again, if you've got a patient's weapon, you need to make sure that that's within your periphery and you can keep it safe. Your sling is going to go on top of body armor. So if that sling is still attached or it's still looped, then attempting to remove that body armor is obviously going to be difficult. And again, this is going to be retained on the patient. So like I said, know and understand how to disengage that sling so that you can get appropriate access to your patient to be able to apply any kind of treatment. Remember, at the same time, things can change. So you have to be able to put those things back in place, or remove them completely so that you can then move with your patient. So it's worthy of note, don't strangle your patient with their rifle sling. So let's look at 2-point slings. And in particular, I'm going to look at my DPMS. Now, I've got a much longer weapon system here. And there are other attachments to it as well. Bigger optics, and I've got a bipod fitted to the front. And this in itself is going to make a difference in terms of manipulation and retention of this weapon. Now, as you can see, I've got a 2-point sling attached to it at the buttstock and forward of the weapon, and it's attached with the push type and clip type fixings. Now I can take this and I can place it around my neck, and I can hold it like so, and I can manipulate the weapon system as I need to, again, to do whatever it is that I need to do. So I've got good movement of this weapon system, and the sling itself is not hindering it. But what if I want to retain this? What if I want to get access to somebody and I need to keep this secure without driving this into the ground? Now, a lot of people will have their right arm through the sling. Then when the weapon is moved to one side, the muzzle is down. Now, this is okay if you're going to be moving in a standing position. If you're going to be lifting a stretcher and you're going to be moving like so. But if you've got the weapon system here, then what can happen is it can block access to your secondary system. It can very easily get caught in equipment that you have on this side. And again, as I said, if you lean forwards, because of the weight of the weapon, it can move around very easily. Now again, this is what's happened before, and this is what ended up striking the patient in the face when the person leant forwards. In which case, how can we best restrain this weapon? Well, if you've got your bungee cord, then potentially you could retain the weapon to either the right side or the left side. But you want to make sure that you're not blocking anything that you need to get access to. Why do that? When we can actually put our left arm through, I can move my weapon system to one side and I can sling it completely behind my back. I'm not blocking any of my equipment. I've got access to my secondary weapon system, and if I do lean forwards and the weapon system slides round, it's the buttstock that's going to strike the ground and not the muzzle. And obviously this is going to be better if it hits the ground or if it touches the ground, and it's not going to get your weapon system damaged. Like I said, I've now got good access to all of my equipment, good access to my patient, but if I do need to get back into the fight, I can get access to my weapon system, move it into a position that I need to, so that I can then get back into the fight. So guys, weapon retention and weapon safety is really important. At the end of the day, you can argue that this is the most important piece of first aid equipment that you're going to have. In other words, this is the thing that's going to save your life, and it's going to save your life of a patient if somebody is trying to get to you. Knowing where it is at all times, having ready access to it at all times is going to be vitally important. But at the same time, you do not want to do damage to it. You do not want to lose it, and again, you don't want to do damage to your patient. So, I hope you've learned a couple of things this afternoon, and again, this is one of those things where you're going to have to take your gear, you're going to have to strip it down to the basics, and you're going to have to know and understand how your equipment works, but not just your kit. Look at your team members, look at your teammates, and imagine what might happen if they were to get injured, and know and understand how to get access to them and safely remove their weapon systems should you need to. Again guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video. Like and subscribe, do all the things that you need to do, ask those questions. It is not a problem if you email us. And Happy Easter.